Can you see okay?
Yes. Ready.
Yes, thank you.
Is the glare of the screen?
It's available to the eye on just now.
So I struggle to see the middle bits.
When you're ready.
Good morning, everybody. My name is James Hitchman. I'm here to train you how to deal with genetic requests and which appropriate letters to send out accordingly. In this session, you will learn about how Trent Cancer Registry deals with the requests and the corresponding letters required. By the end of the session, you will be able to, Jill, would you mind reading the objective form, please?
Match 7 genetic requests with the appropriate reply using the cards provided.
Okay, a brief rundown of how the session will pan out. It will last approximately 20 to 30 minutes. We will discuss 3 main areas, which are what genetic requests are and why we get them, what information is typically contained within the request, and how we decide which letters to reply with. After we've gone through this, I'll ask you in pairs to come out to the flip charts and match the request with the reply on the flip chart. So, there'll be a short session recap, and then I'll ask you individually to match the 14 cards, so 7 and 7, the genetic request with the reply letter. Okay. Right, first off, what are genetics? Has anybody in the room heard of genetics?
Heard of them, yeah.
Heard of them?
Yeah, that's as far as my knowledge.
Yeah, don't know anything to do with...
Similar to, is it DNA, that sort of thing?
It is, it's linked with DNA, yeah. It's how diseases are passed down through generations that we deal with in terms of genetics. Has anybody in the room had anybody in their family that's had cancer? Yes. Typically, the genetic requests we receive are all to do with cancer patients. Right. First off, there are 27 cancer registries, genetic councils within England and Wales. They're dotted all over the country for different areas. They employ clinical members of staff who are clinical geneticists. Their primary role is to speak to patients who know that they have a family history of cancer, and then we'll look into different lineage and see whether or not this family cancer could be a genetic trait. In which case, the patient might go on to look and see in the genetic history and opt to have a surgery. Why do you think the patient may opt to have a surgery?
It's better than having that disease that might kill you.
Exactly. In the case of breast cancer, quite a few women who have a history of breast cancer in their family have the genetic tests and opt to have a mastectomy to avoid getting the cancer. So once we receive the genetic request at the registry, we check our system and we see whether or not the patient is registered with us. If the Trent Cancer Registry has, in our area, we go as far east as sort of Skegness, Lincoln around there. The south is sort of Leicester, we go up to sort of Doncaster, Sheffield, it includes Nottingham. So it's quite a substantial area. So we've got a lot of records on our system. So once we receive the letter, what do you think we use the information that's contained on the letter for? Anybody, any ideas?
Do some research.
Yes.
Can you research it from the letter so that you know the area that they stayed in, you may have a surname or...
Exactly, yeah. We use all the demographic details to check and see whether or not we've got we've got that patient on our database already. Once the database has been searched, regardless of whether we find the patient or not, we are required to return the letter within 24 hours of receiving the request. Why do you think this could be, Nick?
To be honest, I don't really know.
Is it because people want an answer as quickly as because
Yeah.
it could be life and death, couldn't it?
If we say the word cancer, then people automatically think it's an urgent thing. We need to deal with what we're getting straight away, so that the request can be sent back and the geneticists can offer advice in terms of treatment, etc. Right, what I'll show you on screen now is an example of a typical request that will be received by the registry. We've got demographic details, address, where the cancer is, where the hospital in which the cancer was dealt with. So the information that we found pertains to a full registration. Why do you think that we choose letter one and send all relevant details back regarding that patient? Bear in mind, we've got all of the information possible from the genetic cancer, and we've checked the system.
As a backup, as an extra. So whatever's not actually in there, you'll be able to pick it up.
Exactly, yeah, we're absolutely guaranteed that that patient is there, so we can send all the data from there. Another request could be exactly the same in terms of details incoming, but the only information that we hold on our system relates to a DCO or death certificate only. Why do you think that this information might not be as full and relevant and as up to date as a full registration, Jill?
There's very little information on a death certificate. There's no where the patient was diagnosed or treated.
Exactly, yeah. It's just a cancer's been found when the patient's died, and they sent a notification to us, and we're awaiting further information. So we just send a letter to our explaining this and saying that the information may not be 100% accurate. The information here, looking at that, can anybody hazard a guess as to why, as a cancer registry, we wouldn't hold any information for this patient?
Because it wasn't cancer related then.
Exactly.
Heart
Well,
disease.
yeah. The patient actually has heart disease, so we'll do a rudimentary search of the system and make sure that the patient doesn't have or hasn't had any previous cancers, but 9 times out of 10 we'll see it, and there'll be no record of the patient on our system.
Why would you get that request then, if the patient hasn't got cancer?
Because unfortunately, we get quite a few requests in that aren't actually directed for us. Geneticists get the wrong end of the stick in some cases and send in non-registrable, non-cancer registrable genetic requests. This is a letter 3A. Why it's not a letter 4, I've no idea. It's just the way it is. Again, the information comes in. If you can see from the date of death of the patient, 1950, we haven't found any information on our system. Why do you think that could be, Andy?
Historical, it gives you a picture of maybe an area of that there's been maybe more cancer. It's like historical records.
It's more about...
Or family members, maybe somebody else.
Because it was such a long time ago, think about sort of advancements in technology since...
So
Yeah.
it's to do with like the archiving of the records.
Exactly, yeah, spot on, yes. Well, our records date back to 1953, I think so, and anything prior to that, or anything that was before the computer system came in, is very, very sketchy. So we send a reply saying that there's no trace on the registry's database and the patient died over 20 years ago, so we can't go and check the hospital case note. Skip to letter 5 now. Could anybody tell me why they think there's insufficient information on that?
Because John Smith could be anywhere.
Anyone?
Exactly.
He could die at any time, or he could have...
Yeah, there's no date of birth, there's no address or anything. There could be 1,000 John Smiths on the system. So why do you think, even if we found a John Smith with a prostate cancer, why do you think we can't send any information back?
You can't be sure, that's...
Exactly, yeah. If we send the genetic information back, we need to make 100% sure that it's the patient concerned. Otherwise, as happened to the registry, they sent some information back where they weren't 100% sure. It got back to a geneticist, and the patient actually was told that they had a history of cancer, when in actual fact they didn't, and they tried to sue him, one of the registries. So we put all these extra stringent letters and procedures in place to try and combat that. Letter 6. We regret that no record of this patient is on our database. Looking down the information there, have you any ideas why we might not hold a record of this patient?
Different health authority.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Different location.
Exactly.
Your registry office.
Yeah, we'd send this request back to the geneticist, who would then forward it on to the appropriate appropriate registry. Why do you think we might send it back to the geneticist and not just forward it straight onto the registry?
Because it's confidential information for one, and also it's down to the lab to actually send it to the
Exactly.
relevant location. It's for tracking.
Yes, one excellent reason, yeah. There's another, to do with our procedures and how long we have to,
The 24 hours.
24 hours turnaround, that's it. As soon as we receive a letter, even if we can't deal with it, we just send it straight back when we've received it and send it off. Letter 7. Nick, can you try and read the request received?
It's not in English.
Exactly. We do receive letters that are handwritten. Obviously that's not handwriting, but you can't read anything on it. There's no way you can check the database if that's there. So we send a letter back saying, send us something legible, basically. Right, that's the 7 letters. What I'd like you now to do in pairs would be to stand a flip chart each. I'll give you a pen, and then I've got samples of the letters.
I think Jill for this one.
I think we can do it.
So in pairs, if you wouldn't mind just grabbing a marker pen, and then tracing the request. Yes, please. If you've got any questions in the meantime, I'll keep dotting down and trying to help you.
See, there must be lots of golden minutes. That would be one. Where we insufficient information. I just said that's insufficient because you haven't got the database, so you couldn't confirm that was the same one. So I didn't say it's not take those off.
If you just draw a line and see
Yeah,
what
but it might be wrong.
That's okay, it's wrong. We'll just, it's made to try and find out.
Okay, go for
how
that
much
one.
we take from
Go
it.
for that one.
How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, we could be ideally do that.
That one I can't read the writing, so that's this one.
So it's easy one to
Yes.
So that's...
This one.
So... the
Two
bottom
left.
one.
Okay.
So-
What's we got? No records on missing patient. So that's at nothing. Okay.
All finished?
Two bottom lines.
Just try and read.
They're all
Kingsmill Hospital.
What's
Heart,
the
heart disease or cancer related.
Right.
Well, he's one that died a long time ago, 1950.
Excellent, thank you. Right, you did you on
No record of those patients on the database.
How you getting on?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
Me, Joe, you saw the
I'm not a good elimination.
How do we find that exercise?
very useful. Yeah.
Good. Just have a look through now.
Get almost up in there.
It's easy to read.
That's that OCD coming out again.
Okay, so we'll just do a few recap questions now. Why do Trent Cancer Registry receive genetic requests? Nick? If you request something, what are you trying to obtain?
For the patient history.
Yeah, patient information on cancer, so they can take it back and do a study. Why don't we send information if we're not 100% sure that it relates to the patient that we got a request about?
Because you might tell somebody bad news that it's not relevant to them.
Exactly, yeah, well done. Bad news could be the least of the worries. If you have a surgical procedure on the back of the information that we send out, then obviously you can't stick things like that. So what data items might we expect to receive on a genetic letter? We'll go around the room and start with Jill.
Name and patient.
Yeah, that's one.
Date of birth.
Date of birth,
Date of death.
date of death,
Full address.
full address. Yeah. Anybody got anything else?
The hospital.
Hospital, yes.
Treatment.
Yeah.
What we're treated for.
What they were treated for. Anyone for anyone? Could also have where they were treated, where the cancer was, what type of cancer it was. Okay. Right. I think now we are ready for our test.
Yes.
So, very similar to how we did the flip charts here. You're going to get 14 cards each. So on a space in front of you, or if you haven't got enough space, move to one of the side tables. I'm going to give you 14 examples. You have 7 genetic requests and 7 letters. The requests are in blue, the responses are in orange. So I'll just give you 5 minutes to have a look at these. Thank you. If you want any help or anything, then just give me a shout. I'll be wandering around. Perfect. Right. Everybody finished?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Everybody happy with how that went?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just go through the answers now then. So you've done. First one, letter one, you should have a full set of information for registration.
Yes.
Everyone got that?
Yes.
Yeah. Letter two, it's about information that's only available from the death certificate only.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
Yep.
Jill, yep.
Yes.
Letter three, the guy that's got heart disease. Everyone got letter three?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3A should be the guy that died in 1950.
Yeah.
Now we're running through these. Very little information, letter 5.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to be happy with that, yeah? Letter 6, chap from Glasgow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, letter 7 is the big squiggly S.
Yeah.
Yeah? Brilliant.
When can we start working? Can we start Monday?
Yeah, well, yeah. We've got one more thing to do. Funny you should mention that, actually. We shall be looking at hospital visits after this session. So, as tumour registrars, how do you feel you will take this newly found information back out into the workplace?
Is it to record the requests more accurately?
Exactly, yeah. Well, they'll make sure that we don't make any mistakes when we send the genetics back and they all go to the right place. Nick?
Yeah, I just feel confident doing my job now.
Andy?
I think the most important thing for me is that people won't be given the wrong information as long as this is done absolutely spot on. Somebody might get bad news that isn't relevant to them, so I think that's the most important thing. I
Yeah,
think.
spot on, well done. And finally, Jill?
Yeah, no, that would definitely help me. I understand how many different ways we can reply now. I didn't know there were quite so many.
Also, it's knowing what to look for.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, searching the system, then what to look for, breaking it down and then selecting the correct reply to send off. Okay, so, the objective, Jill, if you could just read that out again.
By the end of this session, you'll be able to match 7 genetic requests with the appropriate reply using the task provided.
And I think from that session we proved that the objective has been met there. As an extra little treat, I've got a little handout, which is a copy of the game we've just played, so feel free to cut it out and keep it and play it in bed, give it as a present to somebody.
Thank you.
And thank you all for your participation. That's it. End off.
Very